What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. We are live at Duffy's Tavern, the original, the real Duffy's, the real Miami Duffy's, right in the heart of West Miami. We got a lot of exciting stuff to announce here shortly. We got talking Canes over under 9.5 wins. We're going to get it. Should we hold your money? I mean, we'll talk about the schedule. We'll go through it, but I'm feeling pretty good, man. I never bet on Miami because I don't want to have too much emotional investment in what's going on, but it's looking like a pretty smart bet. We'll talk about that. Also, the turnover battle. Chain's long gone, but still a key part of what Miami's trying to do on defense. We'll talk about, can Miami improve? Who are some of the guys that are taking the ball away in practice and have a chance to do it in games? Peter doesn't need to hop in. He's right here, but some folks that are always right there, that's Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Andrade and Levine. So, Pete, obviously, different surrounding here. Yeah, I know this is your home away from home.
You said you're feeling good. I'm feeling great here at Duffy's, man. I'm live very close, man. I would consider myself a regular here, and gonna be even more regular now that we've got this going on, man. I'm pumped up about this, and excited to just be here more with the Canes fans too, right? I think this is gonna be a great place to interact, during the season with the Canes fans as well. So we'll have, more to come on that. But no, man, excited about this show today, and we're getting closer, man. I know they've got a night practice tonight, as we understand, and going to be hearing from some of the coaches during the day today as well. So get some info leading into tonight's practice. But no, I think they're getting into that game mode, D, because as you know, they've been tightening things up media wise. That's always the point of the practice of camp here, where they're getting more into game planning, and I think the reps are starting to get tighter. And what you see now in terms of the reps that you see is probably going to be closer to what it looks like on game day, game one.
Yeah, before we get into the Canes, I just got to talk about where we're at, man, because Duffy's Tavern, like Pete said, home away from home. This is like the Cheers, basically, of Miami.
Look what Johnny Lagoon says. He says that burger and Duffy's ale hits different.
And this is not, it's the Cheers, but with the family element as well. You can bring your family here. You can have your fantasy football drafts here. You could have your high school reunions, which happen pretty much every day here, because it seems like I always see a group of 40-year-old dudes knocking back beers and catching up on old times, talking sports. Obviously, got all the TVs, football, NFL, college, you name it. Canes watch parties, NFL watch parties, baseball. They got that going on. And just that feel, man. This is a place that's been around forever. It's been there for all those Canes championships. You see it on the walls, all the great pictures. You see Steve Walsh, guys like that, Craig Erickson working at Duffy's, pouring drinks. So it's just a lot of history here. New ownership. If you've seen Scotty's Landing turn into a whole new entertainment capital, right? Something I wish we had when we were around here. Same group involved, but they're not changing everything. As you can see, it's Duffy's. You got Wayne the Pain walking around. My man Jose in the back here working. It's just it's getting with the times while also keeping it traditional. And part of getting with the times, they're taking credit cards now. So if you don't have cash, they got you covered. But again, the same great food, new items as well, and just the vibe, man. I couldn't be more excited to partner up with Duffy's Tavern, because it's something I believe in. I've been coming here since I was 10. I remember watching a Miami, West Virginia game back in the day, back in the Big East era, but like 1998, 97 out here with my dad. So it's just it's an awesome thing. And yeah, man, it's going to be a fun season. And if you are anywhere in Miami-Dade County, you got to spend some game days, Sundays, any day here at Duffy's Tavern, the real Duffy's, not that chain you hear about. This is the Miami original Duffy's. If you know, you know.
Yeah, we're about 5-10 minutes from campus too, D. So right down the street from Coral Gables, we're essentially there. And even if you're not a local, if you're here in town, I know a lot of people come in town for the games. Duffy's Tavern, check it out.
Raymond saying hit the 17 cheeseburger option on the menu. So people know, but if you don't know, now you know. Duffy's Tavern, and bring your credit card. But here, you got your credit card in one of these DraftKings or something else. You're probably wondering about these Canes over-unders on the season. Very popular bet this time of year. Miami has been dicey with it over the years, right? Falling below expectations more often than not. 9.5. So you're seeing a reflection of a rising program in a way, right? Preseason top 10 ranking at number 10 with both major polls. And then 9.5, it's a healthy over-under. Because basically, if you win 9 games, which is a pretty good season for us the last 25 years, you don't hit. If you hit 10 wins or more in this regular season, no conference championship, no bowl, you win the bet. So 9.5 is the number. It's, I think, a sign of respect, but it's a healthy line. So can Miami get over the hump? So, Pete, you're pulling up the schedule now. And spoiler alert, and this is maybe predictable, but I do think we're going to go over that 9.5.
I do too. We'll both get it out of the way here, and I think they do it pretty easily.
Oh, I don't know about easily. I'm sure we're going to be sweating. I'm sure it's going to be an ACC game where we're pulling out our hair. Wonder what's going on. But at the end of the day, like I said on previous shows, this is the most balanced roster we've had in a long time. I think it's the best roster we've had in a long time. You got a veteran quarterback, top offensive line. Those are usually recipes for success. Obviously, a lot rests on how the defense translates the games. I mean, all the same things we're talking about. But let's break down the schedule here as we get it started. So, Pete, first game, toughest game on the schedule, best team on the schedule, Notre Dame. You're playing a top 5 caliber team that was in the championship last year. So we know the challenge that lies ahead. Last year, you remember, we were talking about the Gators starting in the spring of last year. And I said from the beginning, I go, the Gators are not good.
Yeah.
Like, that is a great matchup because we're going to kill these guys. They're just not a very good team. They lack talent. And obviously, we saw what happened. Notre Dame's not that situation. Miami's going to have to play just as good as they did against Florida just to win a close game against Notre Dame. But certainly, I think a game that Miami is going to be competitive in, as reflected by a very tight point spread.
Yeah, really good roster. Obviously, the experience that they return at important positions. And not to sound cliche here, the quarterback thing really, and I know we have a lot of Notre Dame fans stalking the show. We appreciate your support. Hit that like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing a lot of Notre Dame stuff leading up here the next I think really starting next week, we're getting a lot of questions. When are we going to get into it?
We're still in camp mode.
Yeah, I think we turn that page probably this weekend though. But the quarterback thing, man, and this is just, not only seeing the reports, but talking to buddies of mine that are Notre Dame fans that I know how they can get and how excited they are about their season are, a little bit concerned, right? So I think that aspect of it, it's such a question. And again, not to sound cliche, but the lack of experience there coming into Hard Rock, we know is going to be a jacked up atmosphere that night. I like Miami in that game without even having gone into our in-depth analysis. I feel strongly that Miami is going to win that game. And, I think that's obviously one of the questions when you're like, are they going to hit the over or not? That's one of the main games you're looking at there. But I think that's a win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to come down to a couple plays like all these tight games. I would say, like Pete mentioned, he said the obvious, which is this is a quarterback, whoever it is, whether it's Minchie, whether it's CJ Carr, that has not played. Minchie, I think, has 3 attempts. CJ Carr has 0 attempts. So first game in an atmosphere that all the Notre Dame people said was the loudest atmosphere they've ever been in 17. I don't see any reason why this would be different. It's going to be sold out. The roof's going to be on there. It should be this night game. Should be the same kind of deal. So a first-year starter in that situation is tough. Now, he has certain things to their advantage, whoever it is. It's going to be a veteran offensive line that is one of the best in the country, like Miami's offensive line. That'll help the young quarterback. Receivers are veterans. You add Malachi Fields, big body, large catch radius receiver from Virginia. So that's going to help the young quarterback because you have a trustworthy guy there. You also have Greathouse, who really came on strong in the playoffs. He's going to have a little juice behind him. The face-on, the lacrosse player, dynamic guy, can throw him screens. So there's good weapons that have played to help your young quarterback. You don't want a young quarterback with young weapons. If you have a young quarterback, you want veterans. So Notre Dame has that, and the offensive line.
And I think a great coach too. Everyone can have their opinion on certain coaches, but I don't think very highly of Billy Napier as a coach. He wasn't someone that really concerned me in the aspect of an X's and O's standpoint. And obviously his team, he didn't have them ready to go. We respect how he had them still playing for him at the end of the year. I respect that fact. I'm not gonna just bury that, but he didn't have the team ready to go then. I feel like even though we've seen some early season struggles for Notre Dame, I'm a believer in Marcus Freeman. So I think that aspect of it too, you can't just forget about that either.
100%. I agree totally. Marcus Freeman over Napier, 100%. They're a well-coached team. They get smart players and disciplined players out of high school. So when you get guys that are Notre Dame type of guys, they're usually pretty easy to coach. And so they're going to have a lot of factors in their favor to make this a tight, tough game for both teams. I mean, it's a reality. It's going to be a challenge. But the quarterback situation, in fact, you have, just like they have a very good offensive line, we have a very good offensive line with a veteran quarterback who's played in the SEC, who's won, 28-3 was the record right now. So, I mean, the record's outstanding. The experience level, this is not anything new to him, and he's at home. So all those things from a quarterback standpoint favor Miami.
You said Beck 28-3?
Yeah, it was just
24-3.
Sorry, 24-3. I apologize. So, like, you have the same things that are going to help whoever Notre Dame's quarterback is, the offensive line, the good running game, the veteran receivers. Beck has that. Now, the receivers, maybe not as veteran, but think about it. CJ Daniels has been around. He just was playing at Death Valley last year. Keelan Marion's an older player. He's making more and more plays. So it's not like your receivers are totally rookies. And then, of course, we'll see what Malachi Tony and JoJo Trader and the boys can get going. It's going to be a lot of guys in the mix. So, look, tough game. I would say this, though. It's going to come down to who can stop the run and who can run on the other team, right? That's going to be one of the main factors in this game. Notre Dame's lost defensive tackles to the draft. So they've lost guys, and they've lost linebackers, and they've lost safety. So right up the middle, they've lost guys to the draft, to the NFL this past year. They're going to have good guys to replace them, but they're not like bringing back the spine of their defense necessarily. Miami was able to stop the run in their last scrimmage. David Blay, Justin Scott, Ahmad Moten, the linebackers, Mo Torrey, who you're adding, who you think is going to be an impact player, maybe a Notre Dame caliber linebacker. They've had great linebackers for a while. So you add that. You go to the scrimmage. You stop the run. And you say, okay, you're stopping Miami's running game. What about Notre Dame?
The run game must suck.
If you look at the stats last year, top 5 yards per carry. You have Miami and you have Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame was 4 and Miami was 5 or something in the whole country. And that was with Notre Dame having a running quarterback, which they're going to have maybe an improved passing game. Riley Leonard got drafted, right? So he can pass a little. I know he struggled, but it's not like he had no arm at all. But you really lose him in the running game. And if you watched Notre Dame last year, when they got in trouble, if it was 3rd and 4, he was running the ball. Riley Leonard, Love was obviously their best running back, their best weapon. But in terms of like their go-to runner, I thought it was Riley Leonard in the crunch time. He was so hard to stop and he was strong.
No, he stressed defenses in that respect. I think that's why Minchie is going to end up being the guy.
D's saying, why are you guys so small? It's the angle. Pete, you're like, what are you, 6 foot?
I don't know if he means the actual, like...
why are you still saw on the screen?
Yeah.
We're showing the schedule. You want to see us bigger? I appreciate you, D. I appreciate you. You want to see the...
I mean, we can go back here for a second. I don't know if this is what he's talking about.
Yeah, we'll get the schedule back on. Oh, but look at this great view, man. Look at all this cool stuff here at Duffy's. All that stuff on the walls. The tables are lined with pictures going back to the 70s. Like I said, old Canes stuff. I wanted to get to this comment before we even keep talking about the Canes because this one got me fired up. This one's for you, Jose, over there. Look at this. Ray's Kane says, going to Green Tree to watch practice after class or going to a Hurricane game at the OB and going to Duffy's for a bacon cheeseburger and a beer. Few things are more Miami Hurricanes than that. Couldn't have said it better myself. From Ray's Kane, man. If you want to really feel the vibe of Miami, of being a Miami Hurricane, we're out here in the mix, man. A lot of people in the comments. Comments are going crazy. Obviously, Notre Dame's got people talking. We'll be talking about this. Ray's Kane says the interior of the Notre Dame defensive line is not big either. So that's one thing. Trey saying we're going to finish strong against them. Miami has that running ability where they can kind of close it out. Philip saying Duffy's is elite. You already know. So, yeah, this was what's interesting to me. Delane Simmons says Notre Dame will never admit Miami's their toughest game, though. It's funny, on their message board, Pete, I was about to go through the message board. You see people kind of diminishing. They're like, oh, it's Miami. The atmosphere is going to be weak. It's going to be no one in the crowd. And then you get some older posters that are like, listen, man, I was there in 17. I talked to players on the team. They said they were legitimately scared. I mean, those are posts. They said, I talked to players on that team. And they were legitimately scared. These are Notre Dame posters talking to themselves. So, the older guys that have seen this, in fact, somebody, and I'm going to mention this later. I mean, Notre Dame, I don't think has won in Miami in like, I don't know, 40 years. and they've played 6 games here. So this is an atmosphere that is not the most favorable to Notre Dame historically. So I'll throw that in there. I think we'll win. I know you think you'll win. Obviously, it'll be a tough game. So let's count that as a win and a half.
I'll say one thing on that. I was listening to man, I don't want to. They followed us the other day. The Crane, is it Jake Crane? It's on one of these national shows. They do a good job, and they had the Notre Dame reporter on. I think they had Alex Dono on as well, but they had the Notre Dame reporter on talking about Miami, and he says that they have some things that are like they're trying to check off these boxes with Marcus Freeman in terms of things they have never done as a program before, and one of those is winning at Miami. So that's like something that is weighing on their minds, and that can go one way or another if it's an entire off season that you're kind of thinking about getting over that specific hump. So I thought that was interesting. It's something that's in their minds looming over them in a sense, kind of like when we talk about the recruiting rules that they need to be broken for them to finally break through and do something. It was in that vein. So I thought that was interesting.
Now, and obviously we got to get over the hump ourselves in a lot of ways. So a lot
Crane
of
Crane and Company. Yeah.
So here they said, New King God says, Donovan Hinnish seems to be their top D-line player, undersized but tireless type of player. That's one thing by Notre Dame that I noticed when I studied them. Even last year when they had that great defense, they haven't had like a ton of like dudes on the defensive line that you're talking about like first, second, third round picks. They don't really have it this year. Bryant Young, his father, the former 49ers player, he's going to be probably one of those guys. He blocked a bunch of kicks last year, 5-star type player. So he is maybe one that will be that, and we'll see him in the game and be like, whoa, that's a dude. But Notre Dame has not been winning with like, Georgia, Jalen Carter type defensive linemen. They win it. They've been winning it more, or like even some of their great defensive linemen they've had in prior years. It's more about just solid football players, good coaching, consistency, and I expect that to continue. I don't see that stopping. But as far as like overwhelming with talent, they're going to be very good for the reasons that they're always good. But it's not like this is an overwhelmingly talented defensive line that you stack them up against our offensive line and say, that's a top 10 pick going against a first-round pick. It's not necessarily that way. I think we'll probably have more guys drafted off our offensive line and higher than they have off their defensive line, if I had to project. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, so moving along through the schedule, and I'll just give my overriding view of this, of like the over-under before we get into like game by game, D. And I might have been on record before saying this on the show, but I really believe that Miami beats both Notre Dame and Florida. And then, unfortunately, you still have one of those ACC slip-ups. I can't pinpoint where it's going to be now. I think a lot of times you can kind of see the way that the season is riding. The way that last year you just felt a loss coming along the way when it came against Georgia Tech. And then, unfortunately, also against Syracuse. But I have this as an 11-1 team right now. Now, my view on how it happens again is that they beat Notre Dame and Florida, and then you slip up along the way. But of course, you could slip there. You could split Notre Dame and Florida, and also lose another one along the way too, and still hit the over.
So let's walk through it because I want to get there. So Bethune-Cookman, we'll forget that. USF, this is a little sneaky one for me. I don't love this game because USF, they have a veteran quarterback, a guy we played last year who's not the best thrower in the world, but is a big guy. We saw him in person. You were at that game with me, Pete. He's a big guy. He's experienced. He has some ability. And that tempo is tricky, man. Remember that game was like in the second quarter and it felt like it was ready.
Yeah, it was a tale of two halves. It was a weird game.
Now, that was a terrible matchup for USF because when you give Cam Ward more possessions, which they play at such a fast pace, you kept giving the ball to Cam Ward, you end up putting up 50 or something. Yeah. Plus, at the end of the game, they were gassed and we were running for like 90
Lyle had that 92-yarder, yeah.
Our offense, I think our offense is going to be very, very good this year. I don't know if it's going to be like as like just bombed out, like explosive as last year. So it might be a longer, like a tighter game with more possessions that favors them and less than it did last year. And I just don't like that tempo. It's a scary game to me, either to, potentially have a tight game, which would be terrible, or just to, get us tired before this Florida game. But then, yeah, exactly that. Let me know in the chat. Did that white wide receiver graduate? That guy was the best player I've seen. The guy in the 29.
I think he did. He was like a fifth-year guy.
Get that guy out of here. Atkins. That's what John Lugano says. No Atkins. Get him out of here. That guy was very annoying to play. Let's say win that one. So UF here. So UF, they're better than last year. They're not very good in my opinion. I'd look at them differently than Notre Dame, but they do have an exceptional player. And you saw what happened with Miami when they played, what's his name, Drones from Virginia Tech last year, who he's not consistent, but on that day he was excellent.
Flash. He has those flash plays.
And I know our defense stunk, and really that was kind of the game that kind of showed that the defense had problems. But he was making some plays that were like indefensible in that game, like throwing guys off, throwing to the back corner of the end zone. Like he was just so big and talented that like if a guy like that's locked in on that particular day, they can hurt you. Lagway, a better version of that. So
on his day is what they say in soccer. On his day, he's trouble.
So obviously with Florida, you're worried about him being on his day. I think the Gator surrounding cast is poor. I think that's been tremendously overrated by like Pro Football Focus and some goofy stuff like that. What was someone posted?
That was did you see that rant?
Someone asked about it. The guy was, so Brian saying, did you guys see that Gator rated guy from 1010 XL?
I respect that. I have that in me. I've done that probably a couple times on the show. I don't know to that extent, but I respect it.
He lost his mind talking about the Gator offensive line being better than Miami's defensive line because of Pro Football Focus. My friend, do me a favor. Go watch that stupid Netflix SEC show. Go fast forward to the Gator game and look at Graham Mertz laying face down on the floor, looking like Manny Pacquiao when he got knocked out by Marquez on his way to, the trauma center. That's your offensive line. Look at our offensive line, and Cam Ward is sitting in the pocket doing his taxes, throwing bombs. That was the same guys that you're bringing back against the same guys we're bringing back plus. So I don't understand. We didn't have Bain in that game. So I don't understand where the confidence on the Gator offensive line is coming from. It's certainly not statistical because they ran in at average rate to below average rate, and they they protected the quarterback at an average rate. We just look at sacks and rushing yards per attempt. There's nothing exceptional about either of those numbers. So if you want to be excited about your offensive line because of some goofball Pro Football Focus 20-year-old intern grading things, you could feel good about it. But we saw the same players. You didn't add anybody. Like there was no portal additions to Florida. They were the worst portal class in the country. They were like 90th. So I don't see what you have brought back that's going to be different than the two groups on the offensive and defensive line that got completely obliterated by Miami up front. So we'll see. But right now it seems like the same magical thinking that got Gators thinking they had a chance last year. And we saw what happened. One of the biggest blowout, humiliating losses in school history. So we'll see, man.
I was looking at it more as a performance art, what he was putting on there. So again, it was entertaining to me. I think this stuff will all be very funny to look back at again, as it was last year after the game.
Johnny Laguna was saying, Nez was talking about Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks saying it was easy to block them. It looked easy. So these are the same guys. Like they're banking on the same guys that got completely destroyed. Not just the scoreboard. I thought the individual matchups. Like they're suddenly so much better now, and our guys are getting worse, coached by the best offensive line coach in the country, not whoever the Gator offensive line joker is. So good luck. But I think the Gator, like if you tell me Notre Dame's a real team. The Gators are kind of a joke team, but they have a great quarterback potentially when he's hot. You're playing after USF game. That's a more challenging game than last year's game, but it is at home. I'm going to be conservative on this and just say we split Notre Dame and Florida. Just because
I've already gone out and done what you would normally do.
That's right. So let's split those two.
All right, so you're splitting those two, and then we get into ACC play.
Florida State. This game worries me a little bit. It's at Florida State. Florida State has left the level of actual real contenders and serious teams, and now they're going to the level of just like kind of plucky, annoying team. Because they run a system that's going to be different than what we're used to seeing. They got a running quarterback. They'll be at home. They'll be motivated. So this is just like kind of a trap kind of game. Plus, you've gone through a little bit of left the state necessarily, but you've played some tough games at this point in the season. You do get a bye to prepare for the defense, which is a positive, to prepare your defense for that offense, which is a positive, because it's going to be the unusual nature of it that causes problems. Not so much the talent. Their talent is poor, but a trap game here, I think. And then with Louisville right after, it's weird to have a bye before Florida State and then a bye right after Florida State. But I kind of like it, given that the Florida State and Louisville games are both totally different offenses and tricky tight games.
Yeah, Johnny Lagoon's already saying with Tommy C, come on, he's throwing more ducks than 80s on Atari. I mean, I think that, like you said, it's going to be with Malzahn running the offense, they will, I think, be much better. Obviously, you don't expect Castellanos to carve you up through the air, but how many times over the years have we seen a mobile quarterback give Miami trouble? Like, let's be realistic here. It happens. It has happened since I was a young kid going to games in the Orange Bowl. So
it's
a tale as old as time.
Florida State will not be good this year. They're the team that can upset you. That you say, how do we?
They
lose
won
to this
2
bad
games
team?
last year, and the game at some points last year didn't feel like it was completely out of hand.
You want to get to this here. So Mr. Coolhill says CBS pundit said ND was going to win. It wasn't going to be close. Again, there's a team that lost to Northern Illinois this time last year. They kept bragging about, and again, I respect Notre Dame, but we're not talking about the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. This is just a good, well-coached team. They said they kept bragging about their Notre Dame's offensive line. People are really sleeping on Miami's offensive line. I love Notre Dame's offensive line. I think they're legit. Now, they lost a lot of their depth to other teams, right? So they had like 8 real legit guys last year. So they got injured and still had a good offensive line. That's how deep they were last year. But you lost Coogan to Nebraska. You lost Pendleton to Tennessee.
Coogan went to Indiana.
Sorry, Coogan to Indiana, Pendleton to Tennessee, and then who went to Nebraska? They had another starter that went to Nebraska. I'll have to look it up. But they lost 3 guys that were starting caliber players to other Power 4 teams that are, expected to be bowl or playoff type teams. So they lost some of their depth, and then they brought back guys that maybe were hurt last year that were projected to start before they got injured and these other guys started. So they're going to be good again, but they've lost a little bit of their insurance with having starting caliber experienced guys on the bench. That's number one. Number two, look at the stats here. So you compare Miami to Notre Dame. And again, I think Notre Dame's good. UF, I think their offensive line stinks and is overrated. Notre Dame, I think their offensive line is good. But if you compare it to Miami, here we go. Sack percentage. So this is the percentage of plays that result in a sack, passing plays. Miami is number 31 in the country. And that's with Cam Ward holding the ball more than any quarterback in the country. Literally number 1 in yards or seconds before throw. Notre Dame, 51st in the country. It's not like they didn't have a mobile quarterback who'd avoid sacks. They had Riley Leonard. So Miami pass protected better than Notre Dame last year based on just looking at the stats and I would say the eye test as well. Then you say, okay, well, Notre Dame's running game was unreal. And it certainly they ran for a lot more yards than Miami because their quarterback also ran and they didn't throw as much. But if you look at yards per attempt, Notre Dame 4th, Miami 5th in the country. So we ran just as good from a rate standpoint and we protected much better. And NFL, we got a first-round pick in Mawanoa. We got Ines Cooper's going to be a high pick, or at least he's going to get drafted. If he plays how he did in spring, I think he'll be a high pick. Markel Bell, we talked about him as a potential NFL guy. McCoy, we'll see what happens with him. A lot of hope on him. So, I don't see a huge difference, and I don't say that as a negative to Notre Dame. I say it as a compliment to Miami. I think these are top. I think Miami, Notre Dame, Penn State, Utah, those 4 offensive lines, you put them in the top caliber and everybody else kind of a notch below. Gators probably 3 notches below, but they think they're in that category, which they are not, in my opinion.
Yeah. As we keep going through the ACC schedule here, D, Johnny's still in shock that you're giving the Noles some credit here.
Well, I'm giving them they're an annoying average team to below average team, which we've played before, right? They're the 6-6, 5-17 that has a weird offense with a runaround quarterback that's motivated and they catch you at an off day. As far as a peer-to-peer game where 2 good teams play, those days are gone for Florida State. They've moved into the pesky underdog. We'll put them in the USF category. Remember I said USF was a scary game for me? Put Florida State in the USF category. I think that's a good place to put them. Obviously, Louisville's a tough one with a different switch-up offense, but we had those buys. Hopefully we can make that one work. They did lose a lot of guys to the portal, lost an offensive tackle that was very important to them, lost their best offensive tackle, really. And then they lost guys to the draft. They lost their best tight end who went to Oregon. They do bring back their running backs. Their passing game should be good with good receivers. Defensively, they lost their best pass rusher, Ashton Gelati. They lost a little bit defensive back. So we'll see. They'll be Louisville.
I will say in this stretch of games, D, and it's been mentioned a few times, that bye situation is a weird wrinkle. You have multiple buys there in a stretch of a couple weeks. I wonder how they're going to keep the intensity because, man, you come off, let's say you in obviously the best case scenario, you beat both Notre Dame and Florida, and you're starting 4-0 there going into that stretch. That adrenaline is gonna be pumping pretty hot, I would think, and you gotta like bring it back down, but then bring it back up for Florida State, and then you're gonna have to do the same thing there for after a rivalry game for Louisville. So that's one of those things where it's easy to just say we look good here now. This is gonna be a tough game now, but I'm interested to see how the staff handles that stretch.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big test for the coaches, big test for Coach Heatherman, because really I think Florida State's defense, they'll be whatever. I think Miami's they'll be motivated because they're on the road. So if they get a couple turnovers, it could be a problem. But I think just matchup wise, I feel fine about the matchup. It's really just the unusual offense. Louisville, kind of the same thing. I think Miami's going to move the ball fine on Louisville. They destroyed them last year offensively. But then when we talk about Louisville's offense, it's given us problems historically. One of the best play callers in the conference, if not the best play caller in the conference, in Braum. So
Friday night game, as Johnny points out.
Friday night game. So this is a test for Heatherman, not only keeping the guys focused and avoiding the weirdness, which you talk about, but also it's one thing to say we have time to prepare for this offense with the bye, but you actually have to use that time and get prepared, right? So it's not just like you're not just going to snap your fingers and it's going to happen. They got to actually buy in and lock in and do that. So that's going to be a test of the coaching staff. Then you get down the back stretch. It's going to be one game after another, man. Stanford, that should be an easy win. They stink this year. That's at home. SMU, that's obviously huge. ACC championship implications. SMU, really, when you go under the hood, they were not good last year. It's amazing that they won. It's a credit to Rhett Lash's, credit to the guys they had. Because if you actually look at their stats, they had a pretty good defense, better than you'd think. And obviously the pace, there's just like we play 3 up-tempo teams between Florida State, Stanford, and USF. We'll see how much tempo they use against us, but it's going to be interesting to see that. But with SMU, they didn't have a ton of just outstanding players or players that you just look at and you say, okay, this was their obvious strength, but they won and they got the job done.
I mean, like you said, Lashley put these guys in. It's not like they had a bunch of high draft picks, but Lashley put their guys in positions that, they were able to succeed in. They very advantageous spots, like we saw with Brashard Smith, even a Harrison Hunt ended up getting drafted. So I mean,
they got a lot of sacks.
I give them credit. I give them a lot of credit.
So we'll see. That's going to be a tough game. Obviously, they're going to be very motivated. It's at home. They know that they win to go to the ACC championship game. Their odds at least go up considerably. So that's going to be a tough game. Syracuse revenge game at home. Syracuse lost a ton to both the draft and the portal and just general graduation. They brought in Steve Angeli, who we both liked, the Notre Dame backup. I think that was a smart move by them. He's going to stabilize their quarterback situation. But they lost a lot. That's a home game. I don't see that one being one that Miami's too worried about. The next Saturday against NC State, another home game, but CJ Bailey, Pete, you can see it right now. CJ Bailey just having a monster game at his homecoming and giving us problems.
Yeah, you know that one's coming, unfortunately, but maybe it's a showcase. No, I've done that before. I'm not gonna do it now. But yeah, I mean they've lost a lot. I was talking to someone the other day who, even though they did lose a lot defensively, watching them, and I don't know what this means for Kamal Bonner, but someone I would trust, wasn't a huge fan of their talent on defense as a whole last year. So it seems like a transition year. It sounds like the hot seat is on. Does Doran have his job at that point of the season? I don't even know. That's going to be a weird one.
Virginia Tech, they lost everything. I mean, they got graded in the portal. You're talking about their whole defensive backfield gone. Mansour Delane, you'll see him starting at LSU. You have who else did they lose? Stroman went to Notre Dame, who we're going to see a first week, but that was a key guy for Virginia Tech. There's left tackle Xavier Chapman, who went to Auburn, probably the best tackle that changed hands in the portal. You could say Isaiah World up there in Oregon, but Chaplin, they're talking about him as like a first-round type tackle. So he leaves and goes to Auburn. They also had an interior lineman who's one of their better guards. I think their best guard going to LSU to start. So they got rated pretty good. Tootin's out the door. They lost 2 receivers. They actually I think they had 5 or 6 draft picks last year. Virginia Tech was talented last year with the team that we beat, and they still kind of played poorly. So now you're talking about the same internal issues. Coach on the hot seat. He might not be coaching.
That's the other one, yeah.
and they lost a lot.
Yeah, I'm still a fan of Drones. I know he had a down year overall. We talked about what he did to Miami in the earlier part of the year, but I think it could be a rebound year for him. I give him credit for sticking around at Virginia Tech, just because I know he had opportunities to go elsewhere and situations probably that would have maybe looked more enticing on paper. But I think there's something to be said about a guy who stays around and tries to work things out. I think he'll have a better year, and I still think there's a chance with his tools that he gets drafted by a team who takes a chance on something like that. And we saw what he did last year, so can't sleep on that.
Yeah, look, then you go to Pitt, and first there's the geographic element of this. You're going to Virginia Tech and Pitt right at the end of the season. It's going to be cold, right? So that's kind of the obvious thing. We've had so many November swoons that this is like everybody's going to circle this part of the schedule, and with good reason, just because of that historic Miami struggling in November, Miami struggling in the cold, Miami struggling in November in the cold. I mean, this is just things we've seen a million times. So Pitt worries me more than Virginia Tech. They both have kind of beat up quarterbacks that are veterans that have some talent. Pitt has Eli Holstein coming off an ACL. Very good running back, kind of dynamic guy, and Desmond Reed from Miramar High School in South Florida. Went to, I believe, West Carolina, then transferred to Pitt. And he's one of the more dynamic all-purpose guys in the ACC, if not the country. Small, but like a gadget running back who can make 80-yard runs, returner, throwing the ball. He does a little bit of everything. I loved him in high school. I actually sent him to a friend of ours who was at Utah State, and I said Utah State should recruit this guy. He brought the name up, kind of got crickets. The guy went to Western Carolina. Now he's one of the better players in the ACC. So Pitt's going to be tough. But I think one thing with Miami in these games is Miami's kind of built for the cold, right? So it's a different team than maybe like some of those run and gun. Like I remember we had a team that was very.
That one's going to get some raise some eyebrows. That Miami's built for the cold.
You have the biggest offensive line in the conference by far. You have the biggest running backs in the conference by far. You have an experienced quarterback with size and arm strength to kind of cut through the wind. That's a cold weather team. So, I think at least on offense, Miami's certainly built for the cold. Are they built for the cold on defense? We'll find out, man. But overall, I think when you look at the schedule, to me, I'm going to say 10-2. I'm going to say you split Notre Dame and Florida and you drop one of the ACC games. You go 10-2. You go into the conference championship and then play ball, try to win that conference, get to the playoffs. That would be, if I'm betting, that's how I see it, and that would get you over the over/under. And Pete, you say me, I'm the homer. You get all texts in the group chat saying I'm the homer. You're going 11-1.
Yeah, I feel great about this team, and I think the reason I said easily was because I guess in my mind I see 11-1 as realistic, and then even if you split Notre Dame and Florida, you allow yourself a little room there to still lose another one in terms of, I'm talking about the playoff. The playoff, I don't know what that does, but you have to be looking at the over-under. That's what I'm talking about. So,
and Johnny Lagoon's saying, which ACC game do you drop? I don't know. I mean, there's certain games that present problems. Like I said, the FSU Louisville double bye week situation, just with the different types of offenses and double bye, it's just a weird deal. SMU is going to be a tough game. It's on the road against a team that was in the playoff last year. I would say NC State, just with the CJ Bailey Superman factor, could that be one of those weird games? Possible, turn it over, who knows? But I think talent-wise, NC State's really, really down. It would have to be a CJ Bailey, just incredible storybook deal. And then VTech Pitt, just the double cold games. I think Pitt concerns me more than Virginia Tech. But, man, if Miami has a chance to go to the ACC championship game and they're playing Pitt in that last game after Syracuse last year, you got to think that they're going to get that one done. But
Nick Isaac says 11-1 would be ideal because even if you drop the ACC playoff or ACC championship, you still make it to the playoff. I mean, that avoids the situation you had last year. If you beat one of Syracuse or Georgia Tech, you're not in the spot that you are.
Yeah, I think 2 ACC teams will make the playoffs is my guess. We'll see. But I think 2 ACC teams will make it. And look, by the way, I like how we match up with Clemson. I have all the respect for Clemson. They have a great quarterback, college quarterback. Compare him to Colt McCoy. They have great receivers, probably the best. I mean, definitely the best in the conference, probably one of the best in the country with the 3 guys they got. Wesco, the kid from Tampa, Moore. What's the name? The kid from Tampa, the 5-star last year. And then Williams. So they got 3 guys that can go. Someone's going to help me out in the chat. They got 3 very good wide receivers. and the running game will be okay with the running quarterback that they have. And then defensively, they got individual good players, good linebackers, talented linebackers, with the two fast white guys, with Woodaz and Sammy Brown. They have Terrell at defensive back, a corner. He can run. He's competitive. He's on the NFL radar, of course. Look at the defensive line with Woods, and TJ Parker. But I just think
TJ Moore.
That's I knew it was more. But I think size-wise, Miami matches up well with Clemson. We're a bigger team. And if you look at Georgia against Clemson last year, I think Georgia's size, of course, Carson Beck was playing quarterback, did whatever he wanted. I think Georgia's size caused a lot of problems for Clemson last year. I think Miami, with their size, will cause problems for Clemson in this particular game, if that is how it goes. But that doesn't count for the over-under. In this case, regular season, we're both going over on 9.5. Let us know in the comments what we're missing, what we're being homers on, and what we're not being homers on.
Let me tell you something. We created so many clip-worthy statements. At least I did. I was on one. Some of the stuff I was saying here. A lot of stuff for Notre Dame and Florida fans to clip if things don't go our way this season. So
I got all the respect for Notre Dame. We think we're very respectful of Notre Dame. I'm not respectful of Florida because
I'm respectful of Notre Dame. I think Miami beats them, but I respect it way more than Florida for sure.
Baseman, I appreciate you. He said having to play 7 straight games to close the season because the ACC thought that'd be okay even for a top brand to have back-to-back buys could be an issue. So 9-3 is possible. It could be, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Haven't we lost a lot of games with coming off buys or I feel
well, that was a Manny thing and I think a Rick thing for a while. It was it was the curse, they would call it the buy curse or whatever. But
so I don't know. Maybe we're gonna be hot. Maybe we're just gonna be we have depth.
I think that was Louisville game last year. They were coming off the bye. I mean, they won. I was watching that replay last night on TV. That was such a roller coaster game. It looked like they were about to pull away, and then they had that fumble. It was crazy.
So we'll see. But look, we're not just a thin team with top-heavy players. we could talk about, let's say Fletcher's getting a little banged up because he's running all over these guys. Then you go to Jordan Lyle, or Jordan Lyle's getting banged up. You go to Fletcher. Oh, those guys are both a little tired. You go to Marty Brown, right? You have guys, offensive line, a guy goes down, you throw in Sampson. You have options during that stretch to get you through some of the bumps and bruises from playing all those games. So it could go both ways. We'll have to see.
Ant is asking why I'm so confident against Notre Dame. Look, if you're just joining us, we went more into it at the beginning, but I know it's a little bit of an obvious statement, but the lack of the experience at quarterback is not something that I'm trusting right now. So,
Brian's saying, look, they need to mention this: 8 home games, right? Don't leave Florida until November. This is why Notre Dame's such a big game because, like I said, you split those 2 games. I think you're still in a position to go 10-2 at a minimum. But if you beat Notre Dame, now the whole thing is rocking and rolling. You're going into this home stretch, the home schedule, the last 7 home games with everybody feeling high. Dana White out there. Who knows what other dignitaries are going to be out there for that first game. I'm sure you're going to have a ton of Cane legends, at least the ones that don't have games or are preparing for games. So it's going to be a very, very fun atmosphere. And if you win that game in front of everybody, national TV, now you're off and running. Carson Beck's getting talked about. The team's getting talked about. And I just think the buzz in the stadium will be strong for those 7 home games because you started off with that bang. So we'll see, but obviously a critical game here against Notre Dame. We'll give you all the Notre Dame breakdowns as we get closer to the season, but we're following the team. It's right now we're in camp mode. So just for those who don't know how it works, they have training camp, which is basically focused on the Miami Hurricanes. And then when you get to Notre Dame game week, you switch more to a Notre Dame focus. And instead of going against your number ones, ones-on-ones, you're going against maybe a scout team, which is replicating what Notre Dame does offensively and defensively, so you can start adjusting for that opponent. So when that happens, we'll transition. But right now, we are in camp mode, man, and we're fired up for the season.
And Ant is a Notre Dame fan, so that's why he's asking the question. He says, I think it'll be a good game. Hard to predict what Notre Dame will be on offense. The defense will be elite. I think that's fair. That's very fair.
Yeah, I would say so I mentioned, that on defensive line, I think Notre Dame overachieves, and they do it. So it's not a negative because they actually produce, and I think they'll produce this year. But, talent-wise, I don't think they're elite there. Linebacker, they are pretty talented. That's Samoan. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, KSV. But that guy's unreal.
Yeah, he's sick.
And then I think at safety, they're going to have to grow a little bit. But it's in the secondary with Leonard Moore. Leonard Moore is an elite corner. He could be the best corner in the country. If O.J. Frederick on the other side is not the best corner in the country. So, Notre Dame's going to be a problem. And I think if I'm looking at the matchup aside from just generally worried about how they get down and how they typically operate. I'm personnel-wise, Jeremiah Love, obviously, but on defense, Leonard Moore, I think, is like a top 10 kind of guy, and that's a team guy we got to worry about.
Kingston Viliamu Asa.
KVA, sorry.
Yeah.
KVA. Thank you.
Kingston Viliamu Asa.
I'm kicking that one to you for the rest of it.
I think that one. I think I did it right. So D, I know we had something else we wanted to get to in this show. It was in the title for the show.
Wait, hold on. Before we get there, let's talk about the team store because it is a new season, new